Hey everybody, welcome to Breakfast All Day. Christy, Matt, Alonzo. Lynn Shelton has a new film in theaters called Sword of Trust. I have not seen it, but these two have. They're going to tell you all about it.
Go, Matt, go.
So Sword of Trust is about a couple of different stories that intersect. We see Mel, who runs a pawn shop, and he's played by Marc Maron. And, you know, he's got this ex-girlfriend who's come to him for money, and he's not particularly happy about that. He tells her no, and, you know, he's, you know, kind of weathered, grizzly, seen it all. Grizzled. Yeah, grizzled.
I'm not sure he's grizzly.
No, he's not grizzly. He's grizzled. You know, he's kind of like, he's seen it all. Yeah. You know, a little bit beaten down, but still there. And then this other couple, we see this couple, two women who one of them, her grandfather's passed away, and the house that they thought that she was going to inherit, she's not, because the bank owns it, but she gets left a sword, which is a Union sword from the Civil War. And it may or may not be connected to a total rewrite of history, and they take it to the pawn shop, and then it turns out maybe it's worth a bunch of money, and shenanigans ensue.
So the description makes it sound like a whole lot happens in this movie. And it does, but it's very shaggy in its tone, and much of it is improvised.
Right. And sometimes that's amazing.
Right. There's an incredible monologue that Marc Maron gives in the back of a truck.
You know, and I was thinking about that, and I almost had my wife watch it, and I thought, no, because there's actually a couple scenes that need to lead up to that.
You need context.
You need a little bit of context,
yeah.
but and partly just not just the context of the scene with Deirdre, but
who is Lynn Shelton, by the way?
Lynn Shelton, who plays the ex-girlfriend. But then some other stuff comes along, and so when he gets to that scene's riveting. Mm-hmm. Like I was just in the moment, just thinking, God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And the rest of the movie doesn't quite hit that. And there's some fun stuff and some funny stuff and some interesting things happen, but it's almost like it's like you took that scene out of somebody else's movie and dropped it in here, and it manages to work. And it's a weird, like, yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. Like, I enjoyed the movie. I almost wonder if I would have enjoyed it more if that scene wasn't in it. Mm-hmm. Because that scene stands so much above. Mm-hmm. I mean, the rest of the movie's fine, right? And there's some kind of fun stuff. It's kind of interesting. It goes in directions I hadn't really expected. And the improv that's happened, like, everybody that's in this is pretty good.
It's Micheala Watkins and Jillian Bell.
Right.
They are the lesbian couple. And then John Bass, who was kind of the nerdy, schlubby guy in Baywatch.
Oh, right.
Is Marc Maron's assistant
right.
at the pawn shop. And a lot of what this film has to do with is conspiracy theories. It's very much a movie about how we live now and how polarized ideologically this country is now. The pawn shop is in Alabama. Right. And so a lot of what happens with this sword, what makes it potentially desirable to people, is that there's like, and maybe there actually is this, I don't know. I didn't look because I don't want the cookies that I will get if I look, but a whole like right-wing conspiracy theory branch of like Antiques Roadshow, you know, like a whole like Etsy for racists, and like,
yeah.
like, you know, where like you can go and like find things that you know, maybe are of value to a certain kind of clientele. And in the beginning of the film, Marc Maron's assistant is watching some crazy YouTube video from some conspiracy theorists, and so there's the underlying tension of this is bubbling up all around us, and the sword can be used to enter that world for personal gain, to get in and get out, and that's what they think they're going to do with the sword.
Right.
And it does not turn out to be nearly that simple. And so it explores in a kind of goofy, daffy yet pointed way in just how ideologically divided we are in this country right now.
I don't know that it delved that deep into it, though. Like, I felt like the movie kind of did these glancing sort of, I don't know. It's either, it doesn't get that deep, or, you know, and some of the people that we see who are, kind of the ones that they're, the conspiracy theorists and kind of the alt-right types, racists, South will rise again. Like they, had this thing about, it's not the Union Army, it was the Army of Northern Aggressors and that kind of stuff. Toby Huss is one of those guys, and he's hilarious.
Very
in
funny.
This. And Dan Backadall, who was in Veep, he's
great
the
in
party
this.
chair. I kept expecting him to break into the kind of vile filth that he would say in Veep.
Okay.
And he's a little bit classier here. And and when they kind of talk to, and at one point, Nathaniel, the assistant's like, oh, we're going to get to see behind the curtain. Like, we get to actually go in and see what these guys are like. There's not a lot of there, which I think is probably the reality. It's all like kind of just a little languid, and they're, and you definitely get the sense that they're like kind of screwing around with the stuff that they're saying and the way they talk, and it feels very improv-y.
Which does not always work.
Which sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes it works really well, and with middling results. And it would have been fine. And again, there's that riveting scene from Maron, and it almost. I think the movie's worth watching just to catch that scene. It's so good and so powerful. But a little bit, like I said before, it almost hamstrings the movie. It almost does the rest of the scenes a disservice, because that scene is so strong, so powerful, and it's just this long monologue, this long story that he tells, and it's kind of heartbreaking, right? It's really engrossing, and
in a very understated
way. And it's. Get ready to drink. Earned, because you've gotten to know this character a bit.
He's kind of shaggy and kind of world weary,
right? And you understand why. Yeah. But then the rest of it, like, you kind of don't like the rest of it. Especially after that, like, oh, he's kind of back to being goofy and improv again, and which is fine. Like, but.
We know that's in him now. We understand him a little bit better. It does take a little while to get going here. I would say the first half hour or so, I was kind of like, where are we going here?
Right.
And then at about like the half hour mark, it really kicks in, and it's only 90 minutes long. It's very short. I love Micheala Watkins in this so much. There's something about her delivery that is so like. It's mesmerizing, because there's like a passive aggressive kind of laid back tone to some really mean biting stuff that she will say, and you never know from the beginning of a sentence where it will end by the end of it. It's and you're like on this ride with her with every sentiment that she expresses, and she makes that look really effortless, and but there's clearly a lot of timing and work that goes into that delivery. She and Jillian Bell have kind of a sweet, goofy interplay with each other. The one scene that Lynn Shelton is in when we see her come into the pawn shop to talk to Marc Maron is really lovely and effortless, and there's a great naturalism to their way with each other. She's directed a lot of his TV comedy stuff.
Well, and though it's interesting, because I think that scene where she is talking to Maron is a better scene than she's just talking to Nathaniel. Right. Like, that feels a little stilted and forced, and it's a little weird.
Well, maybe it's supposed to.
Maybe.
Right? Because she's a little flaky, and then we learn later on what's really going on with her.
Yeah,
maybe she struggles to actually connect with people, but she has this connection with Marc Maron.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know, my thinking here. I don't know that much about him, but I know he has a podcast. The other WTF podcast, which we used to be. But he's, I know that he shares a lot of himself in it. And this scene in this movie feels like a bit of an extension of that somewhat. But also he does all the music in it.
Yes.
So that incredible song, that instrumental song that's playing over sort of a sequence of events we see toward the end of the film.
Right.
What we see him doing after the whole thing with the sword. It's this really fantastic, like, instrumental guitar piece, and he wrote it and he plays it, and all the music is him. So, do you know a lot about him?
I don't know a ton.
Anyway, he's a musician.
No, I think the scenes with Micheala Watkins and Marc Maron are really solid, because especially like when it's the four of them, when it's Maron and John Bass and Jillian Bell and Micheala, like, very much Mel and Mary are on a whole different level, not necessarily higher, but but the way they talk about money and the negotiations, and there's a streetwise kind of knowledge to them that the other two do not have.
Yeah, there's like a shrewd kind of edge to them.
Right. And you see them both kind of, one of the others will say something and then they correct. It's kind of funny to watch that kind of scenes happening on two different levels with them, which I think is really effective. And so that I think helps keep the movie going as well.
I enjoyed it, but it is kind of shaggy and low key, and it takes a little while to get going. But
yeah, definitely
worth seeing though. So I'm saying 7.
Yeah, I'm saying 7 too.
We're saying 7, and it's at 92% on the tomato meter. So I want to say it was out in New York last week, and it's LA this week, and it's probably expanding.
I believe it's LA this week and also streaming this week.
Okay, you can stream it. That makes sense.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. I'm sorry.
Alonzo's totally ignoring us, by the way, and like messing around on Twitter.
Well, you know what? You want me to butt in on a movie I haven't seen?
Yes, I do.
I'm not gonna.
It's never stopped me.
This is very true.
True indeed. Hey, thanks for watching. Like this video, won't you? And subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us at BeFastAllDay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And why not check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. That's where you can find extra goodies like movie news and trailer reviews and our TV recaps. And starting this is our first month where we're going to be reviewing a classic film selected by you, the Patreon subscriber. So the three of us will be discussing Orson Welles' 1946 The Stranger, which is currently streaming on Netflix. Check that out. It's going to be a lot of fun. And until next time, bye.
Bye.
Bye.